Alex Carter's world had been whittled down to a manageable silence. After years of covert operations and perilous deployments, the former Navy SEAL had retired to a rural home nestled in the pine forests of eastern Texas. The house wasn't much, but it sat on 3 acres of land, far from the noise of people, politics, and pain. He had built it with his own hands, a modest one-story structure with a wraparound porch and a reinforced basement stocked with supplies, tools, and a few secrets from his former life. Inside those walls, his entire world resided, his daughter, Emily Carter. At 10 years old, she was his reason for leaving the military behind. Her mother had passed away from cancer 5 years earlier, and since then, Alex had thrown himself into fatherhood with a commitment that rivaled his devotion to the SEALs. He homeschooled her, taught her how to fish, survive in the wild, and solve problems like a tactician. Emily was a bright flame in his otherwise dim world. Every morning, they would make breakfast together, Emily scrambling eggs, Alex brewing the coffee. Then they'd walk their dog, Loki, through the woods before starting their lessons. The quietness of their life was something Alex cherished, and despite the ghosts of war that occasionally visited him in his dreams, he felt at peace. That peace cracked one morning when a black SUV pulled into his gravel driveway. 3 men stepped out, all dressed in dark polos and slacks. One wore a lanyard that said, "Property Compliance Officer, Oxford Hills HOA." Alex had never heard of any HOA in the area, and he certainly hadn't agreed to one when he bought the land outright with cash 7 years ago. "We're doing a property inspection," one of the men said, without introducing himself. Alex eyed the SUV. No municipal plates. No paperwork. No smile. "There is no HOA out here," he said firmly, blocking the path to his porch. The man with the lanyard smirked. "Oxford Hills has recently annexed this area. You'll be receiving the documentation soon. In the meantime, your home violates several codes: improper fencing, unregistered livestock, and structural non-compliance." "What livestock?" Alex asked. "The dog," the man replied flatly. "And this structure," he gestured toward the greenhouse Alex and Emily had built, "isn't up to safety code." Alex's eyes narrowed. "Get off my property." The men didn't argue. They backed down, politely, but with a knowing smile, as if this were just the first visit. That night, Alex checked every zoning map and county filing he could find. No HOA had jurisdiction in Oxford County beyond the city limits. His property was free and clear, which meant these men were either delusional or frauds. 3 weeks later, it happened. It was after midnight. Alex had just returned from checking his game cameras when he saw the flicker of light through the trees. His house, his sanctuary, was on fire. The flames were already through the roof, licking the sky with tongues of orange fury. He sprinted through the smoke, calling Emily's name. Loki, barking wildly, bolted from the porch. Alex crashed through the door, heat and smoke scorching his skin. He found her in the hallway, collapsed beneath a fallen beam. He lifted it, searing his hands, coughing, choking, but he managed to pull her out the back. Too late. Emily wasn't breathing. Her body was limp, her hair singed, her face pale and lifeless. He screamed, pumping her chest, breathing into her lungs, begging her to come back. But the fire had taken more than just wood and glass. It had taken everything. By the time the fire department arrived, there was nothing left but embers. The official report said it was electrical, faulty wiring in the greenhouse. But Alex knew better. He had wired it himself. He had triple-checked every line. Then, when he went to his security DVR, he found the hard drive gone, cleanly removed. Only one group had reason to burn his home down: the fake HOA. Alex took his suspicions to the sheriff. He brought photos, the police report, the missing DVR, the zoning maps, everything. The sheriff, a portly man named Dan Wiggins, shook his head as Alex paced his office. "There's no record of any HOA in Oxford Hills," Wiggins said. "What you're describing sounds like a scam, but we can't open a case without hard evidence. They came to my house. They threatened me. They filed bogus code violations. Now my daughter is dead, and you're telling me it's a coincidence." The sheriff sighed. "Look, I get it. I really do. But we've had no other complaints. No arrests. No fingerprints. No video. No suspects. If we investigate every scam artist that knocks on a door, we'd never get anything done." Alex leaned in. "Then give me the name of the arson investigator." Wiggins hesitated. "You're not on the list of next of kin. Technically, you're under suspicion until the file is closed." That was it. That was the moment something cold and final settled into Alex's soul. If the law wouldn't pursue justice, he would. He buried his daughter beside the charred remains of her swing set. And that night, he made a decision. He was going to hunt. He hadn't touched his armory in years. The reinforced basement had been sealed since the day he hung up his uniform. But now he opened it, slowly, methodically. Inside were weapons collected from a lifetime of war, a suppressed M4 carbine, a Glock 19, a tactical shotgun, body armor, and surveillance gear. He didn't grab everything at once. This wasn't about going on a rampage. This was going to be surgical. Alex Carter didn't scream or cry anymore. His grief had calcified into something sharper. He started by investigating the SUV, black, late-model Chevy Suburban, no plates visible. He pulled traffic cam footage, hacked into a local security company's cloud via an old contact, and tracked the SUV to a gated compound 30 minutes away in Redfield. The name on the front gate was Douglas Holdings. He made a note. He dug deeper, pulling public property records, digital trail info, and shell company registrations. The name that kept coming up was Brent Douglas, a former hedge fund manager turned real estate innovator. Douglas had a history of redeveloping rural properties by using illegal intimidation to force homeowners to sell. He'd been sued twice, but the cases were dismissed after undisclosed settlements. Alex's mind started constructing a map, Douglas at the top, using muscle disguised as property enforcers to create pressure, then burn or damage homes that resisted. His property had likely been on a list. Emily had just been collateral damage. Now, Alex had a name. And a purpose. He returned to the remains of his house one last time. He knelt beside Emily's grave and whispered, "I'm going to make them feel everything they made you feel." Then he disappeared from the grid. He wasn't Alex Carter anymore. He was the ghost they should have never awakened. Alex Carter had one rule now: no mercy for those who profited from pain. He started building a warpath, not out of rage, but precision, like laying tripwires for men who thought they were untouchable. The compound in Redfield wasn't a home, it was a fortress, a converted ranch house now surrounded by concrete walls, surveillance cameras, and hired security in plain clothes. Through remote surveillance and a drone launch from 6 miles out, Alex mapped the perimeter, counted 5 cameras, and identified 3 armed guards on rotation. But the real treasure was inside. The name Douglas Holdings popped up in local property seizures across Oxford, Redfield, and neighboring counties. Almost every home acquisition in the past 18 months was voluntarily surrendered due to code violations, fines, and obscure easement lawsuits, often settled within weeks and signed over to shell companies. Alex cross-referenced contractors and enforcement firms tied to Douglas Holdings. One name kept appearing: Talon Property Solutions. They had no website, no office, just a P.O. box and a reputation in hushed forums on the dark web. A syndicate designed to look like an HOA front, but underneath, it was corporate extortion. He compiled a dossier on Talon, their trucks, logos, usual uniforms, and locations of reported sightings. In one case, a veteran named Jerry McCall in nearby Navarro County had his cabin torched after refusing to pay $12,000 in compliance fees. The case had gone cold. Jerry was now in a state hospital, burned over half his body. Alex paid Jerry a visit. The man couldn't talk, but when shown a picture of the man with the lanyard from Alex's own encounter, the one who came calling about his dog, Jerry began trembling. The monsters were real. And Alex was about to go monster hunting. Alex didn't go after Brent Douglas first. That would be foolish. You don't kill the spider by slicing at the web. You cut the legs first. His first target was a man named Paul Kinney, a mid-level operative of Talon Property Solutions. Kinney drove a gray GMC truck with magnetic decals and had been spotted filing code violations at 5 homes in the last 2 weeks. Alex tracked him for 3 days, watching him enter neighborhoods, photograph minor infractions, and post fake warnings on mailboxes. On the 4th night, Kinney drove to a bar just outside Canton and got drunk. Alex was waiting. When Kinney stumbled into the alley behind the bar to relieve himself, Alex approached, gloved, hooded, silent. In one swift move, he had Kinney against the wall, knife to his throat. "Say the name Emily Carter," Alex growled. Kinney's eyes widened. Who? Say her name." I don't know who that is." Alex pressed harder, just enough to draw blood. "You work for Talon. You helped burn homes. You killed children. I'm just an enforcer. I don't know about any fires." That was all Alex needed to hear. Not an apology. Not denial. Just confession of complicity. He stripped Kinney's phone, wallet, and keys. Then, in a field 10 miles away, he zip-tied Kinney to a chair, set up a camera, and recorded a 5-minute confession. The man sobbed as he detailed how Talon forced families to move out using intimidation, threats, and occasional accidental fires. Names were dropped. Dates. Addresses. Then Alex vanished. The next morning, the video went viral on an anonymous whistleblower site frequented by ex-cops and veteran groups. The file name was simple: The Firestarters, No. 1. Paul Kinney was later found at a bus stop with a sign taped to his chest: "I helped burn families out for profit." He disappeared from public life within 48 hours. Alex wasn't just fighting for Emily anymore. He was fighting for every voice that had been silenced by Brent Douglas and his syndicate of corporate parasites. Through encrypted forums and burner phone numbers embedded in his videos, other victims began to reach out. There was Teresa Franco, a single mother whose mobile home had been condemned 3 weeks after she refused to sell. She lived in her car now with 2 kids. There was also Jackson Lim, a software engineer whose mother's house was seized by eminent domain after she refused to sign off on Talon's contract. She died of a stroke during the legal battle. The stories poured in. Alex cataloged each one, cross-checked them, and found the pattern. Talon sent scouts to identify undervalued rural properties. Those who resisted were harassed with inspections, warnings, sabotage, and ultimately, if needed, arson. The legal facade was always airtight. And Douglas? He stayed several layers removed, always clean, always untouchable. Alex realized he needed more than tactics. He needed disruption. Psychological warfare. So he went public. Using a disguised voice and proxy servers, he released another video. This one narrated over footage of burned homes, recorded confessions, and redacted documents tying Talon to Douglas Holdings. The message was direct: "You may not remember their names, but I remember every child who screamed in the dark. Every veteran left homeless. Every family you crushed beneath your profit margins. I am coming for you. Brick by brick. Name by name." The media caught wind. Rumors of a vigilante dubbed the Ember Ghost spread across social media. The syndicate had started a fire. Now they were burning in it. In a penthouse overlooking downtown Dallas, Brent Douglas sipped scotch and stared at the news report playing on mute. He didn't flinch, but his jaw clenched slightly when the words, "The Ember Ghost," appeared across the screen. "Cut the feed," he said. One of his assistants turned it off. At 43, Brent Douglas had made a fortune selling desperation to desperate people. He didn't build homes. He built traps, HOAs with Byzantine rules, contracts with backdoors, and enforcement wings filled with men who'd been kicked off police forces for excessive behavior. Talon Property Solutions was just one arm of a larger machine. Now someone was pulling on the threads. He turned to Marcus Vell, his security chief. "I want you to find this guy," Douglas said. "Dig through his family, his finances, the very soil he walks on. And when you find him—" He didn't finish the sentence. Vell nodded. "Already on it. He's good. Military or ex-agency. Might be personal." Douglas leaned forward. "Then make it personal. Find what he loves. Then make him watch it burn." But what Brent didn't know was that Alex Carter had already given everything. There was nothing left to take. Only debts to pay. Alex knew it was only a matter of time before Douglas retaliated. He prepared for it by going underground, never staying in one place, switching cars, living out of abandoned cabins and bunkers he'd marked years ago during recon training. One night, as he approached an old hunting lodge, he noticed something off. The scent of gasoline. A tripwire in the weeds. He defused the line, crept inside, and found a booby trap rigged to the fireplace, triggered by heat, meant to ignite the structure with him inside. That confirmed it. Douglas had found his trail. Alex left the cabin untouched and set up his own trap nearby, complete with dummy sensors and a fake radio beacon. The next night, a Talon strike team approached. 4 men in tactical gear. As they entered the perimeter, Alex activated a remote flare, illuminating them like deer in headlights. One of them panicked, triggering a concussion mine that knocked 2 out cold. Alex didn't kill the others. He wanted one left alive. The survivor woke up zip-tied inside a barn, spotlight on his face. Alex crouched in front of him. Brent Douglas may have built a fortress of lies, but every fortress has a foundation, and Alex Carter had finally found the cracks. The key was Delaney Ridge, a now-abandoned development just outside of Waco. Years ago, it had been the first site where Brent and his silent partners tested their HOA model, using predatory legal contracts to obtain cheap land and push out residents. Publicly, it was a failed real estate project. Privately, it was the prototype for Talon's operations. Alex infiltrated the property weeks before his confrontation. He laid traps, motion sensors, surveillance cameras, pressure plates, fallback positions, and 2 remote-triggered EMP mines. He turned the rotting development into a battlefield, one he controlled. To draw Brent Douglas out, he sent a single message using the same anonymous channel where he'd posted the whistleblower videos. It read, "It started at Delaney Ridge. It ends there. Come alone. Or send your wolves to die." He attached one final file, an image of Emily's scorched bedroom wall, with the words "Justice is earned" burned into the plaster. Douglas didn't respond publicly. But Alex knew he would come. Men like him always believed they were untouchable, that even gods could be bought. Let him come. Brent Douglas arrived in Delaney Ridge with a private convoy, 4 black SUVs, a helicopter on standby, and 10 Talon enforcers armed like a federal raid team. He stepped out wearing body armor under a tailored suit, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, with Marcus Vell at his side. But Alex had been watching long before their boots hit the dirt. The first sign something was wrong came when their comms cut out, scrambled by Alex's EMP pulse. The second was the explosion that took out the rear SUV. No casualties, but plenty of panic. By the time Brent's men scattered into cover, Alex was already moving between shadows. He didn't come at them head-on. He dismantled them. One Talon gunman stepped on a tripwire. Another was ambushed in a collapsed crawlspace. A third turned just in time to see Alex's fist before the world went black. Within minutes, half the squad was incapacitated. Douglas, rattled but still standing, retreated into the main structure, a half-built clubhouse at the heart of Delaney Ridge. Inside, surrounded by concrete dust and exposed wiring, he finally came face to face with Alex Carter. "You're the one who's been interfering," Brent sneered, gun in hand. "All this for one kid?" "No," Alex replied calmly. "For every home you destroyed. For every life you crushed and walked away from. For the screams you never heard." Douglas fired 3 quick shots. Alex rolled behind a support pillar, returning fire with precise, calculated bursts. The gunfight was brutal and close, splintering concrete and echoing across the ghost town. Alex took a round in the shoulder but pressed on, adrenaline dulling the pain. When the smoke cleared, it was just the 2 of them, breathless and bleeding. Alex advanced with purpose, disarming Douglas with a swift strike and pressing him against a wall. "You burned her alive," Alex said, voice shaking now, not with fear but rage. "I didn't know." Douglas gasped. "I didn't mean to kill a kid." "You knew," Alex whispered. "You always knew what might happen. He could have killed him then. A knife in the throat. A bullet in the brain." But Alex had something worse in mind. He activated a remote link on his phone, broadcasting the live feed. A hidden camera streamed their confrontation to multiple sites. Every word Brent spoke, every confession, every cowardly plea, was recorded and archived. "You're not dying in the dark," Alex said. "You're going to die in front of the world." He bound Douglas and left him for the authorities, with enough evidence tied to him to sink the entire syndicate. By dawn, Brent Douglas was in federal custody. The arrest rocked the state. Federal agents raided Talon Property Solutions, seizing hard drives, weapons, fake code enforcement uniforms, and more. Multiple associates were arrested, including 2 state inspectors who had secretly been working for Douglas. Charges ranged from racketeering to conspiracy to commit arson and manslaughter. Victims from across the region came forward. Families long silenced by threats now spoke openly. Civil suits were filed. A class action case was launched. News outlets ran headlines like, HOA Nightmare, Underground Syndicate Behind Rural Fires Exposed, The Ember Ghost, Vigilante or Hero? Alex, however, vanished. No fingerprints. No DNA. No face. Just a legend. For those who knew what really happened, there was no need for a trial. Justice had already been served. Teresa Franco and her children got their land back. Jackson Lim's mother's name was cleared. And Jerry McCall, the burned veteran, received full restitution from state funds linked to Douglas's seized assets. The town of Oxford erected a small plaque on the edge of a rebuilt home. It read, "For those who stood alone and fought back. We remember." Alex Carter returned only once, to the ashes of what had been his home. The property was now cleared, the land grassed over. Emily's treehouse had been rebuilt by volunteers who never even met her, but read her story and cried for her loss. He stood by the tree, hand on the bark, eyes closed. "Hey, kid," he whispered. "It's done." He left behind a small tin box buried beneath the roots. Inside was a photo of Emily, a compass she gave him on his birthday, and a note. "She was the light. I just carried it through the dark." Then he walked away, disappearing into the forest one last time. Months later, a new group began forming, made of veterans, survivors, and former law enforcement officials inspired by what had happened in Oxford. They called themselves the Ember Network. Their mission: to uncover, document, and dismantle predatory property syndicates across the country. They operated legally, but carried a fire in their hearts sparked by Alex Carter's story. Whispers of the Ember Ghost persisted. Sightings in Tennessee. A blurred figure in Montana. A man with a scarred shoulder helping a family rebuild in Alabama. No confirmation. No face. Only a warning to those who would burn others for profit. There is a man who walks the ashes. If you light the match, he will find you.